Hello and welcome to today's episode of Founder Life. Today we are joined by the wonderful David Tuck. David has been in the accounting space for his whole career, starting off as an accountant and then moving through to business owner. We've talked through his journey of building not one company but two tech companies, all in the accounting space still. And we've also been talking a lot about funding and how he's gone through his raising capital, which has been such an eye-opener and really, really interesting. So let's get into the episode. Hi, I'm Cheryl.
And I'm Dan. And welcome to our podcast,
where we talk to real people about real problems in real situations.
Grab a cuppa while we talk founder life.
Welcome, David. It's lovely to have you here.
Thanks so much, Cheryl. Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Cool. Could you just start off by giving us a little introduction, who you are, what you do, and then we'll dig into your journey shortly after.
Yeah, absolutely. So my name's David Tuck. I've spent my entire career in accounting, so trained as an accountant, then headed up a succession of startup and SME finance teams. I've been an accounting tech entrepreneur for the last decade now. So founded and led a business called Chaser, which is accounts receivable, credit control, automation. And then about 18 months now into running with my co-founder Griff. So I'm the co-founder and CEO of a business called Mayday. So our mission is to mend month end for finance teams, help them close month end faster, to deliver their management information. And we're starting by focusing on the pains experienced by businesses that have multiple entities as a group.
Cool. And we've met since, obviously you was at Chaser, and we've known each other for quite a few years now, I think it is, isn't it?
It would be quite a few years, yeah. We're really fortunate to partner with you and Pink Pig at Chaser. So yeah, my guess would be that we'll have known each other for maybe not, but definitely nearer to a decade than 5 years.
Yeah, definitely. I think so. Cool. Well, I wanted to get stuck in on your journey with Chaser because obviously you started that off. You've been through quite a lot of things going on at Chaser, and then obviously you've gone through the sale, the majority of it. So yeah, tell us about the journey. What first of all, what inspired you to set Chaser up? What was you trying to do there?
So, I mean, I've always been entrepreneurial from like a young age. It's always been my dream to run a business, and so it was right place, right time. It would have been back about a decade ago to start my first business, and that was really a solution born out of experience with Chaser of running finance teams and managing credit control as a process, and thinking there should be a better way of chasing up customers to pay their invoices on time. I was fortunate enough to join a business as their finance director that was using Xero, and that was my first introduction into the world of cloud accounting and this whole world of integrating apps, and looked around and thought, well, this isn't something that exists right now. It should exist. And I guess, that the rest, as they say, is history. Left that job to go and start Chaser.
Interesting. You said that you've always wanted to be an entrepreneur and run a business. Where did that drive come from? Was it
hard to say, really? I guess I've always, from age sort of 6, selling pine cones in our cul-de-sac. It's always something that has instinctively resonated with me, and I can't remember. Sure, when you're young as a kid and you sort of dream of being a cowboy, and then you dream of being a professional footballer as a sort of rite of passage. But in terms of serious dreams that could be realised, the dream for as long as I can remember has been to run a business.
So there was no one there that you saw that was doing it as well and you looked up to?
No, not in that sense. I mean, my dad is an accountant, so that's where accounting as a discipline came from. But in terms of the entrepreneurial side of things, I don't know where and how to attribute that.
Okay.
That's cool. Did you want to tell us then the journey you've had with Chaser? How you set that up in the first place, and then see how that's grown and gone from there, really?
Yeah, absolutely. So that launched sort of August 2014. And then, it was great. I think built a great product that people really loved, enjoyed some great kind of successes along the way in terms of raising capital, in terms of winning Xero's at Partner of the Year award, as it was back in 2016. Really blessed with amazing reviews that we're able to garner from our customers and accounting partners, and raised sort of 3 rounds of capital in my time there, and then left the business back in the middle of 2020, after it would have been almost, I think, 7 years from when the original lines of code were written on the first version of the product.
Oh wow, that's so cool. As was it always your plan to sell?
So I mean, I by virtue of the sort of the vesting conditions of my shares, I sold some of my shares when I left, but I still retain the rest of my shares as a shareholder. And so, it wasn't an exit in that sense on my part. It was I guess ultimately it was a recognition that the time was right for me to step out of that business. And I think if I look back on it, I think I probably had got a little bit sort of stuck and tunnel vision towards the end. And so it was a good time for me to move on to what would come next.
Yeah, it's really cool because we speak to business owners, and especially at the beginning of their journey, and so many of them just don't know what they want, what the end game is, or what the long-term plan is. And it's just interesting hearing from people who have gone on and done similar to what you've done, to know if that was in their original plan and you've built.
Oh yeah, no, not at all. With hindsight, I didn't really have a plan. I think that's something, is one of the many things that I channel into building Mayday, being a lot more deliberate around what the goal is. And that's not to say that goal can't change as you get new information, but the worst thing you can do is not have a goal, because then you're rudderless with it. And that was something that I look back on with Chaser and realized that I didn't have to the degree that I needed.
Yeah.
Do you think that almost led a little bit to, as you said, you had a little bit towards the end, a little bit of tunnel vision, and do you think that was part of why that happened? Or
yeah, definitely, Dan. And I think that one thing really identified, and again I've channeled into Mayday, is to fall in love with a problem this time around, rather than, as I identify with Chaser, it was a solution, and we built a great solution born out of my experience. But your ego can get attached to solutions. Your ego can't get attached to problems, because by definition they belong to other people. And that was something that in retrospect led to me kind of getting stuck, because in the face of plenty of signals that I can identify now saying we needed to shift, but because I was sort of so attached to that solution, whereas this time around, I'm very, very, like, I'm so passionate and inspired about the problem we're solving, but that enables me and enables us to be so much more kind of dexterous and flexible in pursuing the best way of solving it for our customers.
You do really have to have that drive and that empathy, I suppose, with the end solution, because you need to be doing things for the right reasons, don't you? And that's helps drive everything else. If you're doing things for the right reasons, and understanding problems helps with that.
Oh, it definitely does. And would you say being an accountant and having that knowledge of the financial awareness and things like that, would you say that's helped you or hindered you in the process? Because sometimes I feel with my business owner hat on, I know too much sometimes. Yeah. But then other times I'm really grateful for knowing what I know, because I can solve my own problems, or I can see it. But then at the same time, I'm not being objective. So how would you say you found that? Has it been help or hinder?
I find it really, it's such an interesting question, Cheryl. And again, you can only join the dots going back. I think one thing I recognise now is the importance of, like, it's a given, right? Everyone recognises the importance of learning as an entrepreneur. Like, there's so much to learn. I think what doesn't get identified anywhere near as much as it needs to is a simultaneous importance of unlearning. And there was a bunch of stuff there's so many positives from training as an accountant, having been a finance person, to carry into entrepreneurial life, particularly. Oh, sorry, I've got a momentary bit of echo there, but it's gone. So many positives from having been an accountant and a finance leader that channel into entrepreneurial life. But if I look back, there was a bunch of stuff that I didn't unlearn fast enough. I didn't recognise the need to unlearn, and that will have really sort of straitjacketed my efficacy, and as a result, didn't enable me to kind of play to my strengths, because I think I was so sort of afraid of getting stuff wrong, having weaknesses, which, I think that's sort of part and parcel of being a finance person. At the end of the day, accounting first and foremost is about making sure stuff isn't wrong, that the client kind of doesn't break the law in kind of submitting the wrong information. And so whilst abundant positives from my past life, as a finance person, particularly when it comes to building accounting technology, and that, because it's a whole language, right? Like accounting, that muscle memory, that understanding, that instinct for accounting is absolutely invaluable. And the empathy that comes with it for our customer. But I think, and I sort of talk to others who are sort of earlier in their journey, moving out of accounting into whether it be sort of startup roles in general, or especially kind of entrepreneurship, and that importance of unlearning, it's definitely an experience I've had that in hindsight potentially should have happened a lot faster.
Quite easy to live in hindsight, though, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's it's all about taking the learning. So I don't do regrets. Like, I wouldn't change anything, wouldn't change it for the world for where I am today. But I think there's a bunch of really valuable stuff there that can hopefully teach to others, so that they can make even better mistakes.
Yeah, I think exactly as you say, it's more important. It's rather than living in hindsight, you learn from it, and you move forwards and make changes accordingly, isn't it? It's the way to do it, rather than think about it and dwell on it too much and not move anywhere. You won't, because you'll be going backwards towards it all the time, rather than.
That's something that I've recently actually worked through with my coach, because obviously I've got another business idea that I'm working on and that I'm doing alongside Pink Pig. And I just said to her, I said, I'm procrastinating over everything, because I know possibly too much, because I know all the mistakes I've made with Pink Pig, and I know now we've got it going, but I know I know where the end goal is that I want to get to with this other business. But I'm forgetting I need to do the in-between bits. So I need to do some of the stuff along the way. that I did Whipping Pig, even though I know that's not what I want to be doing, but I need to do it to get to the end, if that makes sense. How are you finding that with Mayday? Are you finding anything similar with that you kind of know the further bit, but forgetting that you need to go through some of that pain first?
Yeah, it's it's a fascinating one, that, because the whole, so much more as a second time entrepreneur, but you also know all the things that can go wrong, and there's a bliss to the ignorance.
Yes.
The first time of powering through. But I don't know. I would never trade it. I think there's so many benefits to coming back and doing it a second time around. Where you take the time to take stock of the learnings from doing it the first time around, just that ability to know what matters and what doesn't. Which the first time around, it's like everything's equally important. Whereas now, there's a bunch of stuff, sure, that's really important and has a huge significance. And there's a bunch of stuff that will just get sorted. It might not be sorted this minute, but fast forward however many hours or days, and it will be sorted. And it doesn't require any excess concern. It just requires dealing with and a bit of patience. And so, because I fully identify with you come in with a much greater awareness of all the things that can go wrong. But I also think that is more than outweighed by the apparatus you hopefully come in with it to be able to reflect on past successes and past failures and past stuff in the middle, stuff which can potentially feel like a huge failure if you let it, but actually isn't really a huge failure. It's just a learning, and it's something to take in your stride and move on from. But that body of experience and muscle memory from having done it before is what gives you the ability to identify accordingly.
I don't know. Very wise words there. Very wise. I think that is the thing. Once you get into that second time going, you need to remember which bits you do need to remember, which bits actually. And as you say, there's so many bits that the first time around would have been a stress and I've got to do this and I've got to do it now and it's really, really important. And then you realise however many years down the line, actually wasn't that important and I didn't need to worry about it. And it's nice to be able to take those learnings, isn't it, into the second time round. And
yeah, and it's really critical as well. When I started Chaser, I was 29. I was getting married the next year. And if there was a meetup thing or a whatever, I could just, at a moment's notice, kind of go and do that. Starting Mayday. So what would that have been? 18 months ago. So that would have been, I was nearly 38. I've got 3 kids, and my family life is immensely important to me. It's the most important thing, and so I have to be so much more efficient with my time. And I really I love that pressure to make all of my decisions of how I allocate my time count. But if I look back on that's why the muscle memory is so important, because that ability to judge accordingly, it'd be so much harder were I doing all of this for the first time.
And time is precious, isn't it? It's the one thing you're never going to get back. So allocating it properly is so, so important.
Just a quick shout out to our sponsors, Xero, who I believe for many reasons are the best accounting software out there for small business owners. One of these reasons is being able to file your VAT return through MTD, which is the digital way that HMRC make you file your VAT returns. Now, it's not just as simple as clicking a button and filing it, but this is not the time or place, but it does make it nice and simple for you to check your return, make sure it's correct, and then get it filed with HMRC. Check out Xero today at xero.com. That's Xero with an X, Xero.com.
You said that with family life, there's more pressure on your time and you think about it a lot more. How have you learned to do that? So is there like
what to allocate my time?
Yeah, how do you prioritize that?
So I think, yeah, so like the best. It's almost inverting it, right? The best way of doing it is subtracting things. I find to just to not do stuff, to say no. I love this book called Essentialism by a guy called Mckeown, which turns the kind of the concept, the principles of net promoter score to life decisions. So for anyone not familiar with net promoter score, it's the idea of, ask someone like how likely they are to recommend a product or service on a scale of 1 to 10. And if it's 9 or 10, they're classed as a kind of a recommender. 7 or 8, neutral, and 6 or lower, that's a kind of negative response. That's a detractor. And the whole premise of kind of essentialism is that it's so easy to fill our lives with the 7s and 8s. It's really easy to avoid the rubbish things. It's easy to avoid the bad decisions. It's the stuff in the middle, which is kind of neutral, that it's really easy to fill your time with. And that's to the detriment of your ability to focus on and really enjoy the kind of 9s and 10s, the outlier, positive impacts. And I really, that's the principle, I guess, that overarches, everything. You can have all your kind of time management hacks and organizational hacks whatsoever, but ultimately it's like the principles with which you approach it of, okay, I've got this finite amount of time and I'm going to be really disciplined about subtracting anything that isn't, doesn't have a good chance. And there'll be some stuff where you can't know in advance, so you give it a try to see whether or not it can deliver 9 or 10 impact. But yeah, that mindset I have found to be really valuable.
Sounds like a good mindset. It's one that's you're going to make sure that everything you do or every person you interact with is going to have value, isn't it? So, because you put them in that category. That sounds remarkably similar to a conversation I was having the other day with another business owner. It says when you ask someone what their feelings are on something, 9 times out of 10, their response will always be 7, because 7 is enough for you to feel like that's okay, but not low enough to make you feel bad about it. So you're never going to learn from anything that's good people that are going to tell you be that sort of person, are you? So don't spend your time with them.
Oh, cool. I think. Oh no, you're not.
Yeah.
No.
I think it's frozen.
You did. It did freeze for a minute. Yeah.
Oh,
that's yeah.
So I just wanted to dig into a little bit about the raising of capital, because that's a process that probably scares the hell out of a lot of business owners and entrepreneurs, but is done by so many people. So I just wondered if you could kind of talk us through a little bit about the process and basically make it less scary for us.
Yeah.
If possible, of course.
Sure. So, I mean, there's so many different ways of funding a business, right? And I think the biggest mistake anyone can make is to just fall into a dogma of this is the right way. So, I speak from my reference point of building technology and software businesses where
we see it a lot with business owners and in the industry.
And there's a bunch of upfront costs that needs to be incurred in developing said technology, not anything like what there was 20 years ago, right, where you had to go off and buy your whole kind of hardware servers to be able to host your software, because now you can buy those services kind of you can rent those services elastically, but there's still a significant cost that you need to incur in producing your product or products in the first place and then bringing them to market. And then if you're selling on a subscription basis, the cost of acquiring new customers up front for hopefully very long and happy lifetime that they have as a subscriber to your software. So in that regard, it tends to be equity capital, right? Selling a proportion of your business in exchange for shares, so that selling a proportion of your business as shares in exchange for cash to be able to invest in growing the growing the business. It's not to say that there aren't some other options and some complementary options, but generally speaking, debt and the unpredictable nature of building a technology business don't tend to be brilliant bedfellows. So, it's about looking at kind of equity capital, but then also, being really disciplined about what is the right way to grow this business. Are there, what's the right trajectory? Because it's not a sort of binary thing. There's a sliding scale of, well, how much capital is the right amount of capital? How much dilution is the kind of business prepared to take? Because there's risks in not having enough capital, in the same way that there's clearly a risk in having not enough oxygen as a human being. But there's also the risk of having too much capital, too much oxygen, in a startup sense, because it's kind of like, it's like petrol for a car, right? Like, you want enough to be able to travel the distance, but if you have too much, what happens if you try and put too much petrol into a car? Well, it spills everywhere and creates a really dangerous mess. And I think you can apply the same principle to startups that overfund themselves. They raise too much capital, and that comes with an investor expectation and pressure to put that capital to work. Yeah. And there are plenty of examples of businesses out there who had great products, who had the opportunity to build great businesses, but they raised too much money with the pressure to show growth that the business wasn't capable of that point. You raise, investors, particularly kind of venture capitalists, give you money to go and spend that money. If the business isn't ready to have that money spent on it, you sort of overhire to be able to cater to future growth. Well, that overhiring brings with it a huge kind of rigidity as well, because you've committed to that particular path. You lose flexibility, you lose proximity to the kind of customer, which might be okay. That might be like part and parcel of growing. But if your business isn't ready for that, it hasn't kind of got the core product market fit, actually, that all of that, paradoxically, you're having raised more money has increased the likelihood that that business fails, as opposed to, as you'd expect in having more money, it reducing the likelihood.
There's I was listening to Stephen Bartlett the other day, Diary of a CEO, and he was talking to Sophia, and I cannot pronounce her surname, but Nasty Girl. And that's exactly it. She had, and she wasn't even looking for investment, and she was like, I don't think headhunting is the right word, but that version for investment. Yeah. And she was given like millions and millions that she didn't even need, but she was kind of gone down that line to spend it. And that was actually the downfall of her business. She didn't need the money, or not that much anyway, to grow. But it was really interesting, actually. I never saw it from that perspective until then. And what you were saying just then just reminded me so much of her story. And it's really interesting, isn't it?
Because if it's a complete flexibility, to not spend it, great, because then you've just got more of a buffer. But how often is that the case? It's it's the sort of second and subsequent order consequences of raising money. Well, there's going to be expectations of deployment and the growth that comes with it. And great if those expectations can be realised, but if they can't, that's going to be really problematic.
And silly question now, are the investors, are they as scary as the dragons on Dragon's Den? Do you get that much of a grilling, or is it a lot less scary?
I think it really so when you're raising money, no, absolutely not. It's a lot. I think a lot of that is sort of sensationalized just for the cameras. Because at the end of the day, people are, it's the start of a relationship, and there's also hopefully your business will have the opportunity to raise money from various different sources of capital, and so in that potential investors situation, they don't want to leave such a bad impression that if they do come to want to invest, they are at the very bottom of your choice list.
Yeah, let's see it that way. It does make me laugh sometimes. They get such a grilling and there's some of the things they get asked, and then they're like, "Oh yeah, I'll take you on as my drag," and I'm like, "Really?" I think there was one this season, wasn't there, where Tuchel was just like saying some really horrible things about the business. Then he offered the money and they accepted, and I'm just like, "What?"
Where'd that logic come from?
Yeah, exactly. But no,
I suppose
really
the other
thank
question,
you for sharing that.
yeah, thank you. I mean, the other question I suppose is, you know, where do you kind of go to start finding these people? It's probably the other question to probably kind of ask. Are they people you already knew, or are they firms that particularly can put you in front of these people? Or?
Yes, I mean, like generally speaking, and it'll vary from industry to industry, but there's plenty of lists of kind of active venture capital funds, active angel investors, and the best way in is always through a warm introduction that ideally from someone they've invested in previously. And that's the carries the imprimatur and like implicit endorsement that comes with it. So that's generally recognised as the best way in. Like a paid introducer is, it should only ever be percent, as a success fee. You never want to be, should never ever be paying money up front for investment introductions. But like a 5% of money raised for investor introductions, like, okay, your interests are aligned there. If you really need to, that's a kind of, that's a sort of second best. But like generally speaking, I've always found that there will be ways in through your network, and it's just about finding them through the powers of LinkedIn, and then asking, it's kind of classic portfolio theory, asking enough people nicely, and then, doing a really kind of zealous job and an eager job when you do get the introductions to kind of follow up really well.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Makes sense.
And speaking to your accountant as well will help, because we have contacts, which I think David probably knows who my contacts are. In the same industry, but no, and that's actually a really good thing as well. So like these people, and I'm going back to Dragon's Den here, but these people that do go on Dragon's Den, they sometimes have these so ludicrous valuations of the businesses, and having you need to have all your accounts in order, don't you? You need to know your numbers and everything. How did you find that side of it, having all your numbers? Because I'm sure with your background as well, you kind of knew all of this sort of thing, but how far in advance do you need to have like management accounts and things like that?
So it's really interesting. So the whole management accounts only at like the very end of the process. It's the financial model for what are you going to do with the money and where you're going to take the business with it that needs to come earlier. Everything else will just get mopped up at the back end as part of due diligence. So absolutely, you need to have your ducks in a row. But people only care about that once they're in, and they just want to make sure that there are no skeletons, which mean that they shouldn't be in. Yeah. Whereas the financial model is part and parcel of the, I guess, investment proposition of what will they be investing in, and where will that business go as a result of their investment?
Yeah, no, that makes sense. That definitely makes sense. Oh, well, I thought we could move on now to Mayday, your new venture, your new award-winning venture. You won an award.
Indeed.
Well, as of recording this, it was last week. Obviously, once we go out on air, it won't be last week. But yeah, you won an award at the Zero Awards last week.
We did. Yeah, we were absolutely elated to win Zero's Emerging App Partner of the Year award for 2023, which recognises the sort of the most promising new software addition to their ecosystem. So yeah, blown away to kind of receive that, and yeah, just like incredibly grateful to, well, we're a phenomenal team who are incredibly kind of committed to delighting our users. We're incredibly grateful to Zero. They've been amazing to partner with, and above all, like we're we've been kind of live for a year now, and where we've been able to take the product, that wouldn't have been possible without the support that we've had from like early adopters of our product, who've given us a huge amount of time, at times patience, a huge amount of support and insight to be able to develop a product that meets their needs and is now out there and garnering great reviews, and that's sort of reflected in winning the award. So yeah, it's been an amazing first year. So the awards were on the Wednesday evening, and it was exactly a year from our launch on the Thursday. So that was a great early birthday present.
It does, and it's so well deserved as well. I was so pleased when I saw the news come through. I was just like, yay! It felt like it's like all the people that I love and I've got so much respect for all seem to do really well this year at the Zero Award. So it was so lovely to see. I just wish I could have been there in person to congratulate everyone, but it's brilliant. And obviously this time you're doing it with Griff. You've got a co-founder. So how have you found that experience of having a co-founder and working with?
Oh, it's been amazing. So Griff and I have been friends for 10 years. We worked together at a startup where I was the CFO and he was the CTO. And yeah, it's just amazing. Like, it's always been a sort of, an ongoing dream that one day stars might align and we'd have the opportunity to work together. And so it proved with Mayday. So yeah, that's been amazing. And yeah, he's a phenomenal co-founder, across sort of all areas of the business. And he's just, the most sort of incredible technologist and artist when it comes to product, which our ever-growing base of customers are benefiting hugely from.
Oh, that's cool. But it's not so lonely having a co-founder, is it?
No, it's really nice, and it's great to you share the wins together, and just the ability to unblock yourself and greater than some of the parts at times. It's not just that there's the element of it can shortcut the process of being blocked, but there's also that it enables you to hit a level, and by collaborating together and seeing things from different perspectives, access a quality of end decision that no matter how much time I don't see, you would always be able to reach that yourself.
Oh,
Do you find, though, that sometimes things can take a little bit longer to get done because of two of you to thrash it out? Maybe. I think, again, this sort of speaks to, we know each other for a long time. We worked together before. We know we work together really well. I like to think we do a really good job of sort of minimizing drama. So there's, sure, there'll be stuff that comes up every now and then, but we kind of keep it to its very bare sort of necessity. And then, beyond that, I like to think we do a pretty reasonable job of recognizing and trusting each other for the stuff that doesn't require sort of decision by committee, and then identifying when it is a situation that would benefit from that committee and coming together accordingly. And so, and then there's stuff in the middle of that where it's like, well, I just appreciate a sounding board for this, which I always think that's really valuable to have on hand, where it's just, otherwise you might agonize over it and you think you're probably there, but you could just value that sounding board and you get it, and then you kind of get it out the door with confidence. But I think it is really just about it's about that discipline, and it's about that sort of identifying and categorizing accordingly, so that you sort of put things in the right boxes for what treatment they require.
Makes sense. Do you ever find that you're butting heads and you completely disagreeing on things, or do you find, because you've got such a good working relationship anyway, that you're normally on the same page with things?
Yeah, I mean, so what we're 18 months in, and don't get me wrong, we have we disagree on things, we have different perspectives on things, but we've not not yet once had anything come anywhere close to kind of, intractable. We just, we just resolved it. So that's 18 months and counting, and long may that continue to be the case.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it's a bit like a marriage, isn't it? You're always going to have those issues.
Absolutely.
Or those disagreements, or where you're not quite on the same page, but you always get to resolve, 9 times out of 10 you resolve it. And
it is, right? Like that's the near perfect analogy for it.
It's really interesting. It's so lovely to have watched your journey as well.
Oh, thank you.
It really is. It is inspiring. It definitely is. Oh, cool. Well, I think we're going to go to, unless you've got any other questions, Dan, I was going to go to our closing.
I'm good.
Cool. So, closing question. If you wasn't at Mayday or doing anything in finance, what would you do?
So, I think, like, if I think about the elements of work I enjoy most, like I really enjoy leading, and I enjoy coaching. I really love that challenge of sort of awakening motivation in kind of people, and helping them sort of see what they can be capable of. So yeah, whether that would be just sort of individual coaching or sort of building a business around that, and helping, I'm really inspired by this idea of like your career is kind of is made up of sort of series of, big moments, sort of sliding doors moments, paths in the road, and, helping people make the best decisions at the right time, because, it's so easy gets away from people. You see all these, so many people who sort of end up in completely the wrong careers for them, but then they're so far down the road that it's really difficult for them to kind of row back from that. So yeah, that's quite a kind of broad area, but yeah, that whole, like, how to help people sort of get as close as possible to sort of self-actualization when it comes to their careers is something that I find very inspiring.
I like that.
I think you'd be really good at that, actually. Maybe that's business idea number 3.
Who knows?
If it is, then you heard it here first.
You've just given away the long-term plan for Mayday and everything.
Yeah, that'd be quite a pivot, wouldn't it? From month-end accounting automation.
Still a good name for as well as what is good name for the account end. It's a good name for coaching as well, actually. So
yeah, indeed.
It is. That it is. Oh, well, thank you so much for joining us, David. I have loved chatting with you, and sharing your wisdom with us as well. It's been really interesting. Thank you.
Likewise with you both. Thank you so much for the invite.
No, thank you. Thanks for listening. We hope you enjoyed the episode.
If you did, please like and subscribe, and we'd love to hear your feedback. So please do leave us a review or drop us a DM on our Instagram @FounderLifePodcast.
See you in the next episode.